o tema de pensamento Lean, gostaria de chamar Diana Amador, Senior Solutions Engineer da Atlassian, para compartilhar alguns dos principais benefícios de implementar o Lean Portfolio Management com o Jira Align.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today in this session of implementing Lean Portfolio Management with Jira Align. I am Diana Amador. I'm a Solutions Engineer with Atlassian, and we are happy to discuss one of the most important areas in bringing value to the organization. Our agenda today will be covering what is Lean Portfolio Management mission, how Atlassian is helping organizations in pursuing business agility, what is it that we call the investment hypothesis, how Atlassian implements value engineering, and a very small brief example about how you can observe this in capital efficiency. Let's start talking about LPM mission, or Lean Portfolio Management mission. We define Lean Portfolio Management vision as a way to equip portfolio leadership teams with tools and practices needed to optimize business value by funding teams and the continuous aligning investments with the strategy. We are using the term portfolio in the broader sense, or the traditional sense, of a group of investments that the organizations do in order to bring value to the business. So when we are talking about pursuing business agility, the question here is how we pair this investment management with agility and how we can make better decisions about our investments and the value and the return they are giving us when traditionally we haven't done that. In traditional portfolio, we are only following like annual cycles or annual planning cycles. So here, for example, Atlassian mission really is to unleash the potential of every team, including the portfolio leadership teams. And that means to unlocking new ways of working, including continuously serving a network of delivering teams, and ultimately unleash agility for the business. Like Scrum and Kanban teams, the enterprise portfolio teams live and work with uncertainties every day. The only difference is that the portfolio teams will do it at a much larger scale. For example, if you are asking yourself, are we going to invest $15 million in this piece of work in 6 months? Or will the market have changed or move on by that time? So you are pretty much betting against the circumstances and only with the information that you have right now. So the portfolio teams are now forced to live in an in-between world between fiscal processes and dollar signs and need to bring and coexist with agile practices and abstractions so you can understand what is the level of work or effort that is required to deliver on a specific initiative and the risk and uncertainty that you cannot do it. So LPM charters, or Lean Portfolio Management charters, are new ways of working for enterprise teams so that they can unleash business agility amidst their local world of uncertainty. It flips the decades of old script of plan ahead and plan with precision, and instead suggests something that some people might call crazy practices like commit at the last responsible time and team collaboration is more important than processes, or a dollar number isn't everything. And the craziest of them all is let the team decide. So the ability for Lean Portfolio Management to make decisions when there is a lot of uncertainty, but at the same time, if you or the team doesn't make these decisions, that's an even riskier situation. Well, that's where we are moving, right? Between deciding and not deciding, to facing uncertainty and unlocking ways of working and responding to continuously changing circumstances. And that's exactly what lean portfolio management is all about. What are those tools that portfolio teams can use in order to respond to these new circumstances like uncertainty, constant change, and even some things that are unpredictable, such as the pandemic that we are just living? So, in pursuing business agility, lean portfolio management charters, they find these new ways, as I just mentioned before, and try to move from today's state to a future state in business agility. For example, or the first example here is projects used to be funded and reserving accountability and decision making only to the top level of management. And right now, business agility is about moving that decision-making process also to the teams. That doesn't mean that the top level of management is not going to be participating. All the teams will take all the important decisions. But we want to empower them, to give them money, to fund them, and empower them, because teams are the people who are in the front lines, who can understand the day-to-day changes, and also who can actually provide the top level management with this understanding of everyday life and create this feedback loop, allowing top level management, even when they are not in the front lines, to understand what is happening there. Another thing that we are observing in the current state is that team's budget is usually calendar driven. Usually it's going to be planned annually. And we know that changes and uncertainty, they don't have a calendar. You will need to respond as events happen, and teams need to plan continuously, more like event driven and not calendar driven, only committing resources as needed. You may have a plan in place, but maybe that plan it needs to be reworked, and you need to have the ability to do that and not waiting until the planning cycle is complete and to respond. Because if you do that, it might be too late. So that's one other consideration about business agility here. Now, we are also talking about committing budgets and leave no space to pivot and persevere discussions. We know that if the organization is not getting the return on investment that was expected, you need to have in place some indicators to let you know that this is happening and allow you to make the pivot or persevere decisions and conversations that will allow you to stop losing money, or cutting your losses, or even allocated that money to other initiatives that are going to be more fruitful for the organization. But without the ability to detect, to have these indicators and bring the people to have the conversations that will allow you to pivot or persevere, well, you're stuck in your cycle. And you will know very, very late in your planning cycle or return cycle that you didn't get the results that you were trying to achieve. Now, unnecessary precision is something that we have been observing also in planning. Most people get confused. Well, it's not that you get confused. In fact, is that this is a traditional mentality about having very clear goals and very clear ways to get there. And sometimes when you are in the middle of the storm, you will not have that precision. You may have necessary precision as much as you can, but you shouldn't consume all your time to get all the precise information, because it is a way to waste a little bit your time. It is better to have an overall understanding of your goal and move towards it, and be continue learning and refining, if you will, your path, your route, and get the results closer at a faster pace. So sometimes that's something else that we need, and we need to aim at that in business agility, because time is of essence. So if you don't have 100% of the information in order to make a decision, it doesn't make that it's not worth it to make a decision anyway. You can target certain percentage of information that's good enough for you to move ahead, and will not, and that way you will not paralyze. It will not paralyze you. You can continue moving forward to your goals. Another important thing about the current state is to track singular data points for reporting. When you are tracking singular data points for reporting, at certain point, these data points, KPIs, become more important than the real outcomes. In Atlassian, we focus on differentiating what is an output and what is an outcome. You may need or use your outputs as an indicator that you're getting to your desired outcome, but we shouldn't mix what is a signal with what is a real outcome. So surfacing signals amidst trends to make informed and strategic decisions is the way of the ability. And it's part of determining what are those signals that are more important for the organization, and how these signals really provide information that allow the organization to say, yes, we have achieved this goal and not another goal. So never confuse these metrics with the real outcomes. So finally, in the current state, we have success that is measured by scope and budget. And we measure that success in terms of how much we deviate from the original plan. And once again, we are we're losing track of what is the important target here. We can be in scope and we can be in budget and still on budget and still haven't really achieved the outcomes we were targeting. So the most important thing is to ensure that success is not just measured by metrics, but also by other factors that go around that final outcome that we are looking to get. If you develop a great application and release it, but none of your customers are really willing to use it, or they get confused as they try to sign in and use it, you don't have enough downloads, then you have a feed loop. And it's very important from the agility perspective to close any kind of initiative with that feedback loop that will inform the organization if the investments that they have done have really delivered on the outcomes that actually were planned in the first place. So by pursuing LPM, your organization can actually actively target outcome management, opportunity management, agile planning, which is a term coined by Gardner, and development of value stream management. The first one is what I was talking about first. So the organization is not focused on metrics, but rather in real outcomes. The most important part is that outcomes are not always going to be quantifiable in a traditional way. Sometimes we'll be talking about scores, We'll be talking something that is an indirect product of the work that your teams are delivering. So you need to take into consideration how you're going to create that feedback loop, allowing you to understand if you have achieved or not the outcome. Not if you have finished work, because you can work as much as you want, and even then, after a lot of effort and a lot of investment, not reaching your outcomes. And that's very important to keep in mind. We are managing for outcomes, not just managing for outputs. The second point, opportunity management, it's that refers to the ability to use these feedback loops to detect when something is not quite right. But that doesn't mean that the work that you have delivered is a waste. The work that you have delivered may not be delivering the results that you expected, but still be delivering some results that can uncover value to the organization or opportunities. And if that is the case, you need a tool to help you identify what are those values and what are those opportunities that have been uncovered by them. Opportunities management needs to be maybe you didn't achieve the expected outcome, but maybe part of that failure, if you will, can be repurposed for another kind of initiative that is going to be successful and will deliver value to the organization. LPM is more than anything as search for value. Anything that can bring value to the organization should be identified, should be uncovered. And the way you do it is by using your metrics in a smart way to either get your desired outcomes or to detect, if you don't have the desired outcomes, how to use the work that you just delivered to identify or uncover opportunities. Finally, the enterprise agile planning is all about that exactly, right? My planning needs to be agile, needs to be continuous. I may not need to wait for an annual cycle to start just reviewing my budget, reviewing my initiatives. If the markets, if the customers are sending me a signal about what is working and what is not, I need to have the ability to reallocate the resources, to use any work that I already have in my pipeline, and direct all those resources into something that will really bring value to the organization. And in order to respond really quickly to any changes or any uncertainty in the markets, we have the development of value stream management, because that is the way that we will reorganize internally in order to bring that value into the organization, rather than just being following processes. We no longer want to be following a process that is in place just for the sake of it. What we want to do is to have the ability to reconfigure and to use our value streams in a way that is delivering, as the name just mentions it, real value to the organization. Now, all of this is true when we are following an investment hypothesis or ask. So the investment hypothesis needs to do with a current approach. First of all, we think that certain activity will bring value to the organization, right? And we decide to allocate money to it, resources to it, and start working on that. But if we do this, the current approach would say, and you just give the money and forget about that, and someone is going to deliver, well, we will start falling into all these situations that you can see here, because probably the portfolio leadership team will no longer be involved on how this investment is used to deliver work and what are the actual outputs, and finally outcomes that will not be delivered because they don't have many times visibility. And this happens because at the time that money is allocated, you may not have the tools to track that investment, to track the work that is performed by teams at the lower levels of the organizations to deliver. And if you lack of visibility, you will know very, very late in the process that you may not get your destination. So another good thing to think about this is annual planning. Annual planning manages numbers. We believe that by allocating money to specific areas, that's what is going to make those goals attainable. But reality, it's not. It not only happens once a year or once every 6 months. Reality happens every day. So the kind of tool that you need to track your work and your investments needs to track reality as well. So, and what I mean by reality is the work that the teams are delivering every day, your software developers, anyone in your organization, they are doing something every day, and you need to keep track on that and make sure that that work is aligned with what you believe to be valuable to the organization. So that's an important thing to consider, having a tool that will allow you to track that reality. In third place, we have that many tools right now during the budget planning, event or events, they optimize for numbers to be more cost effective, not more value effective. And that's something that is very important to take into consideration. What is the thing that we really want to optimize for? Just to spend less, or to get more value. So having into consideration how much money you're allocating against how much value you're going to get will give you a better understanding of if you're really optimizing for the organization or not. Another thing very important about the current approach that we have in investment is funding projects. Right now, most organizations will allocate money to projects, but a project has a finite output. It will start and end and deliver certain results. And that's it. That's our current definition of projects. From an agility perspective, we don't want to fund projects. We want to fund teams. And we fund teams because we want teams to be continually delivering on value streams. And what is the value stream? Value stream is a set of steps that will deliver value to the organization. And this is not a finite output. This is not going to end. This is the way the organization actually do business and make money. So that's why instead of funding projects, we want to move into funding activities that we know that will bring value to the organization. So we also have been observing a misguided definition of success. And what do we mean by this? Success is not just to complete work. Success is to attain outcomes. But we get so involved, so engaged into delivering outputs or results in a way that, or just work for the sake of work, that we sometimes miss that we have worked a lot and haven't attained what we wanted to attain. So once again, I cannot stress enough the difference between managing for outputs and managing for outcomes. Outcomes, those are the ones that are going to move the needle. And you can see here in this cartoon that I have the Goodhart's law, when a measure becomes a target. And when that happens, it ceases to be a good measure for example, in the first image, you can see if you measure people on number of nails made, then you might get 1,000 nails, right, of tiny nails, because that way they will have delivered many, many nails. If you measure people on the weight of the nails, they might create like really, really large, heavy, gigantic nails, because those nails are going to be really heavy and allow your measure to be a weight of nails made very successful. So we have to be very careful on how we set our metrics, and that the metrics are not going to directly be, they are an indicator of the outcome, but they are not the outcome. Finally, we have an immature or opaque understanding of waste. Sometimes in the process of delivering an outcome, we may find that there are some activities that seem to be like waste, like an activity, like a planning activity, review activity, but all these activities will save you time, money, effort later. So the way you define that activities as waste or how they flow, it's an important measure also of your success at a later time. Sometimes it is more important to spend a little more time in certain activity to ensure that you're solid to move into the next step. And finally, and then this is all about Atlassian, you need to have the right tools, or you might have the right tools, but have the wrong governance. You need to be aware of what are those important things that you need to govern to provide certain overseeing. But it's not just to be compliant the only way to achieve a good result, right? Even if you have a right tool, if your governance is too stringent, if your governance requires a lot of approvals, you will be stopping your process. And every time you're stopping, you're slowing your process, then you are going to be slowly paying a price for all these hurdles and all this governance that might not be as important as you thought. So giving a good think about what are the real governance points that need to be implemented in a process is also very important. So you don't sacrifice your flow just for certainty. So the bad engineering, it's again having this ability to have outcomes against outputs, or using outputs to achieve the outcomes that your organization requires. To do that, the idea is to just go into funding for value, from concept to cash. And again, this is not a project. This is a productive activity, a value stream that the organization designs when you have an idea, and how you bring it to market, and how that market is going to pay for it and will create a feedback loop for you. Also, continuous planning and measuring for capital efficiency. When is the time when I need to take measures and make decisions about how I am allocating capital to all the activities that I am involved with? Surfacing signals amidst trends. Understanding what is a real signal that will allow the portfolio team to make decisions, and not just following a trend, but have a real understanding of the markets, and having this feedback loop with these signals to either decide to pivot or persevere on the activities that I am pursuing as a business. And finally, instilling lean governance. deciding what are those very important areas of governance that need to be implemented, but will not slow the lean process, will not slow the organization from moving forward. We don't want to create hurdles by implementing governance. We want to allow the flow of work to continue and not to burden our teams with unnecessary governance that will not really deliver any benefits to the organization. So no matter how a company defines value, it can be many different kind of companies here, service companies, product companies, it is critical that the value is transparent, is clearly communicated, and is anchored for every investment in the organization. If there is no clear value, and I stress in this the fact that there are some value streams that are meant to be compliant, only compliant for certain industries, that is the value the organization is bringing in. But not knowing what is the exact value that I am getting, regardless of it being monetary or not, that is a huge mistake, because that is the part where the organization is going to be really wasting its resources. So the value engineering feedback loop is in today's world, as I mentioned before, of uncertainty and acceleration. The portfolio leadership teams need a tool that is agile, but is also anchored on business value, right? So first of all, when you identify or you discover certain investment opportunities, of course you need validation, because we are thinking we have a hypothesis and we try to prove that hypothesis is correct. But in order to do that, we need to make some investments, deliver certain work. And that's why we create what-if scenarios and horizons. So we know that if we start investing in an idea, we have certain time to prove that that idea is really delivering the results, the outcomes that we expected. If this is not happening, we have to move away from that hypothesis. And I know that many of us, when we have our baby, we are portfolio manager, we have a great idea, we are sponsoring it. It's hard as humans to just step aside and look at it in a more objective way and say, okay, this is not delivery, I'm going to give it a chance, I'm going to look at it, but a certain time. But if I'm not getting the outcomes, I need to take the hard decision of moving away from it. On the other side, if we see that something that we didn't expect it to deliver as much value, but it is delivering, we need to move our resources to that initiative that is really bringing value to the organization. And sometimes when we think that something is really valuable, we don't have all the information, and we will learn as we move forward and get more information to make more informed decisions on whether we should continue, stop, or just change it a bit or pivot so we can make it more valuable to the organization, right? And we have to be, here is where we need to detect or have some key results that we need to track. We also need to set some guardrails so we know that we are within our means or our scope. We also need to keep track of our risk profile. If there are so many changes that we are facing that we're not able to foresee, we also need to make some adjustments. And just to test our assumptions, if they were true or untrue, and act on that, to have that transparency with all the organizations that said, okay, we thought that this was going to work, but it isn't. So fail fast and just pivot as soon as you can, so you stop the organization from losing more resources or wasting more resources on something that is not delivering. Here is Jira Align, and I want to talk to you about the way we implement in Atlassian Jira Align exactly this value engineering that I've been talking about. First of all, you may have in your Align, and this is just one of our screens, you have the ability to create a hypothesis. In this example that you're looking at, you can see that we believe this hypothesis is being designed in this way. We believe that providing AI in a call routing will get customer answers faster, and we will now know when a call wait times are reduced 50%. I used to work a lot in implementing automation by using chatbots. So this is a very well-known belief between all these call centers. A lot of people believe that if they can use a chatbot, or that it can be a voice-activated chatbot, or it can be a text chatbot, they will be able, with certain amount of artificial intelligence, because we have a huge range of artificial intelligent chatbots, they can reduce the waiting time for customers. And some of them have really attained a lot of success by doing this. But it also depends on the industry and in the kind of calls that you're getting from your customer. If most of your calls, for example, are for very basic operations like changing my name or giving my I want to get my balance or something like that, very repetitive and simple task, a chatbot can really help to reduce the waiting times for all your customers. But if you're in an industry that is very customized, it might not be true. So you need to establish, you may have these hypotheses, and you need to select some metrics that will allow you to know if this is really happening for your customers. In this example, you can see that we have set two specific metrics: routing minutes and score. So, and minutes, of course, are minutes. This is a discrete count. And we think that right now it's taking us 9 minutes to answer a call, which is not very fast. And also we know that right now our NPS, or Net Promoter Score, that metric that will allow us to know if the customer is likely to recommend us to another customer, is quite low, because we are in score 3. So this is our starting point. This is our baseline. If we believe in this hypothesis that if we can move or reduce our routing minutes from 9 to 1 and increase our NPS score from 3 to 7, we're going to be giving a lot of value to our customers and to the organizations. Here you can see we have a start date and a target date. And we believe that by implementing certain changes, we will be able to get these outcomes by November 7th of November of 2021. We also think that if we invest $300,000 in research costs and we take another 1.1 million, in order to build that intelligence, that artificial intelligent chatbot to help us with the routing, we will get that. And all of that is our value hypothesis. We believe that the organization will get a lot of value out of this. And we commit. Our portfolio team approves this investment, and we move into the bet. The bet in Jira Align is this moment where the organization already has a good idea. Okay, we need to do this, and in order to get that, we are going to develop these applications, we're going to develop this chatbot, all this machine learning, everything, all the work is in place, and we start working. And as we move in time, and you can see here in this example, we started moving in June, you can see how we are spending money. What is the rate of expenditure that we have, and how much money is still there from the money originally allocated that specific outcome or output. So here you can see that the average, and this is the 7 average, will give us an idea on what is the voting for the team for that portfolio team to know how much value we are perceiving from this specific effort. And when we call a bet, and it's very interesting because in Atlassian we choose to call it bet because this is pretty much like, not, I wouldn't say it's a gamble, but we believe that by putting our effort and our money on this specific activity, we will get a result. But we are not sure. That's why we are calling it a bet. We, unlike a traditional project, but we are very, very sure that if we have our use case, our business case in place, we are certain of getting the result that we are aiming for. Well, here, we are acknowledging that there is always a level of uncertainty that we need to account for that may not get us there. And let me tell you, for example, I have this experience with a call center that we implemented the chatbot, and it turned out that it was an insurance company here in the United States. And a lot of the callers were older people who were not really akin to technology or chatbots. They wanted to talk to a person, so they didn't like the chatbot. They didn't use them. So it was, even when we have a great application in place, the customer was not the right person. And you may tell me, okay, maybe you should have known before that. And we design the chatbot in a way that we believe it will appeal to this specific group of people. But it didn't, right? And sometimes you may gather a lot of information, but it's very difficult to have all the information or everything in place to make sure that there is no way to fail. So a bet is this idea that we're putting our effort, we're putting our money, but we still need to track it to make sure that it's really working. So finally, we reach a point here where you can see how much money we have spent and how much value we're getting. And as you can see, the blue line over here is the actual spend, and you can see that our teams have been really working and delivering a lot of application, a lot of software there. But the actual value that we are getting out of it is not moving in the same way. You can see that the value that we're getting for the money that we have spent is not getting us there, or maybe it's going to get us there, but at a slower pace or a most costly. It will require more investment on our side, much more than we expected. So at the time we are measuring, because this is always a function of time, we can see that it turned out that our investment, it's too expensive for the value that we are getting. So having the ability to make this decision and not wait like 6 months or 1 year to kill it, or to use what we have in place to pivot to another application that might be more valuable, it's really the value that you can get from implementing lean portfolio management and value engineering. The ability to create these feedback loops, to use a tool like Jira Align that will allow you to create those feedback loops and make decisions in reality, not just based on assumptions. Finally, I have another example about capital efficiency, and it also has to do with comparing the traditional approach of capital efficiency and the agile approach to capital efficiency. So first of all, capital efficiency is a game of optimization for value, right? Pursuing goals while managing risk, but optimizing resources. So what we want here is, and portfolio teams have limited ways to understand this, of course, because we want to know how to plan for work with varying levels of uncertainty. Sometimes, and have the ability to respond to that uncertainty. If for whatever reason your uncertainty increases, I mean, and we know this, the shorter the projects sometimes, or the faster you can deliver, you can minimize that level of uncertainty. If you plan, for example, on a vacation, it's a very simple example, and you can have just buy your tickets to go that specific place. There is a chance that, I mean, the price of those tickets will stay the same because it's in a very short time horizon, right? The longer the horizon, the less certainty we have on everything. So, and when this happens, of course, you want to invest on running your business, on keep things running in a way that is valuable for the organization. But also, you also want to put some money on those investments that are more uncertain, that may allow you at a certain point to change the business. And I've seen also this in certain manufacturing customers. Work with these huge food company, and they were usually they are known by producing these sugary sodas, sugary beverages, but they understood that there was an increasing number of people who wanted more healthy options or no sugar options. So they started spun off a new area in the organization to start developing those healthy options. This is not their main business. They're still investing more of their money or their resources in running the current business. They're still putting some money to change the business, because when you reach that change in the balance, when right now we have more people probably drinking sugary beverages, but if we just get into that tipping point when more people will want to drink non-sugary beverages, you need to be ready for that, right? So the ability of having a tool like Jira Align that will allow you to identify how much money you're going to put in each bucket. What are your bets? What is the time horizon that you think that those bets are going to bring you value? This is also very important because you can respond to the changing markets and not just stay fixed on a reality that may change really slowly or really fast, and you don't know. So you need to be prepared. And all of this is what we call the value-driven decisions. Where is the value? How I can be prepared. In this capital efficiency, when you're designing software, and this is just another example of how traditionally we believe that the company can have that information about what is how to invest. Sometimes we commit at a certain point. When traditionally we commit money once we have requirements and design and start creating a whole product, right? But what happens if, as you are creating a product and you consider to have the product completed, things change in the world? And a great example of this is not software, but it has to do something with it. I want to just mention the case of WeWork. WeWork was on a roll because it was very successful. The co-working spaces were really successful all over the world when the pandemic hit. And that caused WeWork to lose a lot of money and even close a lot of their premises because people were not looking for a co-working space anymore. It was an extreme example, but for example, for WeWork, their investments were really rock solid. I mean, they were spaces that they acquired, that they work on them and getting remodeled and ready for to deliver co-working services was a huge capital investment. And they didn't have the ability to just say, okay, I'm going to move away from my leases and see how I can recover from that capital investment. They need to take a hit there. So the difference with Agile is that ability to, let's not put all the work at a single time, but incrementally, gradually, as we learn more about our investments and how good is their return, we start adding more and more activities that we can capitalize. So that's the difference between a more traditional waterfall approach when we're fully invested. And if something goes wrong, we have very little room to respond to those changes. Whereas in an Agile approach, we are constantly learning, having these feedback loops that will allow us to respond to this change or any changes and minimizing the impact, losses, the damage that we can get from any changes in the market. Finally, again, I cannot stress enough what the feedback loop is, how we can learn as fast, and Jira Align is the kind of tool that will allow you to implement all these for your portfolio leadership teams. You no longer need to have all these spreadsheets everywhere or different systems to just put together what is your bet, what is the reality, and how they work together. So you have a clear answer on what are the outputs, and if these outputs are really supporting you into attaining the business outcomes that the organization is looking for. So this is pretty much, as you can see, and I'm taking these from Jira Agile at Scale. The portfolio canon is pretty much built into the idea of creating these or uncover these CapEx potential and making the corrections along the way to get there and optimize the value of your investment. In other words, the value of your portfolio. So thank you, everyone. I hope this has been useful. If any of you are interested in taking a closer look to Jira Align, I will be very happy to help you with that. And if you have any questions, please go ahead.